Welcome to our Watch App programming course from Agionics. My name is Brett, and in this lecture, we're going to look at the Watch App lifecycle. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and create a new project for the watch. So I'm going to just select project, and a lot of this is going to be familiar. You might start off with iOS application, and single view may be highlighted if that's what you worked with last time. In this case, we're creating a watch app. So I'm going to go into this section, WatchOS, and choose application. And then I've got the iOS app with WatchKit framework. So in this case, we get the iOS app and the WatchKit app. So I'll just do next, and I am going to call it Watch Test. And I'm going to include everything down here related to the watch except these tests. So we'll have the glance, the complications, the notification, and I'll just leave it on universal and do next. And now I'll just choose a location and save it. And that's my app. I'm going to change this to an iPhone 5, so it's not so big. All right, let's look at the components here of what we're getting. So up here at the top, we have our familiar iOS app code. So this is what you'll see without the WatchKit. The two new things are this Watch Test WatchKit app. So that's the name of our app, Watch Test. Then we have the WatchKit extension. So the app, kind of like the host for the extension. The extension, remember, is where the code is. So we can see here we have interface controller, which is really like the iOS view controller. So we have a UI view controller here, but over here we have a WK interface controller. So the naming is a little bit different, but everything else pretty similar. WK for WatchKit. And then we have our notification controller, our glance, our complications. So that's for programming those three items that we checked when we created the app. Here's where our storyboard is going to be, any assets we have. So resources are here. And this one is similar to the layout up here. So we have our storyboard, we have our images, our info list. Difference being that in the iOS app, they put everything in one folder. With the watch, they put it inside of an app folder, and then the code goes into the extension folder. All right, so let's get down to business about how the life cycle works. So we have these three items here. These are going to correlate back to what we do in the iOS app. So I am going to try and open up another window. I want to go ahead and put this on the right. Over here, I'm going to actually choose to work with the view controller. Okay, so we have view did load, we have did receive memory warning. We also know that we can do other things in here like view will appear, and we want to do our super, and then we can just put in animated. And then we'll have a few others here, and actually I can just do something like view did appear, and then put our super and animated. Okay, so here's the corollary. We have awake with context, similar to view did load. So view did load is going to load the first time that the scene loads, and that's it. So if the scene is destroyed in the app, when you load it again, this will load up. We have view will appear, similar to will activate. So that we can see here, this method is called when the watch view controller is about to be visible to the user, similar to how view will appear works. So anytime the view comes into scene, it will trigger. So if we have a navigation controller and at the top there's our navigation, we navigate to another scene. On that scene in the top left is the back button in our iOS app. When you click it, you go back to this scene here, which triggers view will appear. And then of course view did load triggers only the one time because the scene remained loaded even though we navigated away from it. Then we have did deactivate. The method is called when the watch view controller is no longer visible. And I have view did appear. That's not actually the one that is similar to that. So view did unload should be more similar to how view did deactivate works. So I'll add that there. And let's see, it's going to start complaining. Cannot override. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this one. But anyway, we have the corollaries between what's going on in the view controller and what's going on in the interface controller for the WatchKit extension. And what I'm going to do is actually print out these different methods so we can see how the order works. And I'll put breakpoints. And then basically they've got them lined up in here the same as how they're going to fire off, which is convenient. And it's also a good way to line things up if there's a particular order to how things fire in a life cycle. Then it's good to just go from top to bottom in that order, top being the first one on down to the last one. So I am going to go ahead and run this app. Now when you're running your WatchKit app, notice at the top I've got my scene or scheme selected and I've got the iPhone. That means the iPhone's going to run. So you might be wondering, well, where is the watch? And if I look in here in window, there's no watch window. And if I go to hardware, there's nothing about a watch here. So it's kind of like, how do you get the watch to function? Now we get into the usefulness of these schemes. So you can see here we have several different ones. This here will run our watch, and we have two sizes, the 38 millimeter and the 42 millimeter. Then if we want to work with these notifications, the glances, the complications, then you can also choose the different iPhone you want. So they've got us on the iPhone 6 Plus paired with that one, which is fine because it's not going to affect the size of the watch. So I'm going to go with the 42 millimeter watch, the bigger one, and that should then trigger the running of that watch. And I have to click play for this watch app. So right now we are running our iOS app, but we need to do play again now that we've got our watch selected. So there's two different plays, and the first time this tries to run, the simulator is not running, so I'm going to stop just the watch app. Notice I could have stopped. Now I stopped my iOS app, but I can go ahead and try and get the simulator back going, and that should not throw an error at this point. You can see simulator is watch. So I don't have my iOS app running, I just have the watch running. So there's our WatchKit app starting up. All right, we go into Awake with Context, and then I'm going to go ahead and let that run through. Will activate, it's triggering, and then I can see down here that I've got will activate. And so there we are. Now we're done and our watch is loaded. Let me go back. Here's the simulator for the iOS app. It's going to don't allow. And it is running the 6 Plus. I thought that we did in fact select over here. It looks like we did select the 6. So that's why it kept telling me when I was running the watch app that we are running the 6. All right, so let's go back to our watch. Here's our app, nothing on it. We don't have anything on our interface, but go in here, look at the interface for this. There it is, reflecting exactly what we have. And if I open this up, that's our main entry point we can see here. And then our glances and notification. So there's all the different elements. We're going to work a lot right here in this interface controller scene as we're building up this app. Now you'll notice down here we only have the two different methods that triggered. So if I go back into our extension, we still have this did deactivate. So how do you trigger this one? And it's going to happen when the visibility of our scene goes away. So if we go to another scene, or if the watch app closes, and we should trigger that. So I'm going to go to our watch, go up to hardware, and we have a home just like we do on the iPhone, and that is going to then make the watch app go to the background, basically suspend it, close it out. So I'm going to click that. There's the watch. We're out of our app. And here's did deactivate, and that triggers. And so you can see that there. So it's actually a fairly simple life cycle as to how these things work. And I'm going to go ahead and remove these real quick. We'll look at the delegate for this. And go back into our files. So here's the extension delegate. This is similar to the app delegate. And the app delegate has a lot more in it than the extension delegate, but there is that similarity again if you ever need to use this. So that is a watch app lifecycle.